Look, I have no problem with people critiquing Tower of God or critiquing SIU, saying things that they didn't like about a chapter or things that they wish would happen in the future. I have no problem with that. I think that's great, and I do think SIU sometimes needs to hear that kind of thing. Even if he doesn't hear it, I think it's healthy for the community to discuss these things. SIU, in my opinion, is like a master storyteller. I think he's gotten so good at writing stories, but of course, everybody could always get better, and I'm not trying to say by making this video that SIU is a perfect author and that the Tower of God story is perfect and everything that's ever been done is perfect. You know, I'm always the first one to critique certain arcs like the Floor of Death, thinking that things could have been different, but overall, there is one point about Tower of God that's recently been brought up, and I'm seeing it in different parts of the community, that does make me a little heated, okay? And it's not bad, it's fine. I'm not like actually upset about this or anything, but it is something that has got me thinking, and it's something that I wanted to talk about. By the way, if you're new to the channel, definitely be sure to subscribe. We make lots of Tower of God videos here, etc., etc. Like the video, let's freaking go. A couple chapters ago, we got a backstory on Haratcha, Lopobia Haratcha. We found out that he is not actually a son of the Lopobia family. He was sort of brought in by Haratcha. Haratcha basically gave him feline powers and let him become one of his division commanders, or whatever his rank is, right? And before, Haratcha was just one of the bad guys. He was a guy who kept wanting to fight Hansung Yu. That was sort of his character, the crazy feline who wanted to fight Hansung. But this backstory kind of came out of nowhere, and it was really interesting because it described his motivations, it described everything, it described how he became who he is, you know, it described the feline powers more so in this new race of Rashangs, and it was really interesting. But it did take a while, and so it was like maybe less than half the chapter, maybe half. It was a long backstory, a long story. And because of this, you had some people in the community who were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. We're finally getting this like intensely detailed background on these characters. You know, we get a lot more about the world. But then you had other people saying, this was boring, and this character doesn't matter. He dies at the end of the chapter. You had people saying, his character was useless anyway. What's the point? And that's fine, like, I get it. But there are some people who just really harped on that point, and that it was a useless story, and that Haratcha as a character was pointless, and why did they develop him? Why did he just died right away? The story was bad. You know, whatever, like, why did SIU spend so much time on a side character, therefore making the story bad? I have a problem with that. I'm not saying that the way it was handled was perfect. I loved it, but I do think perhaps SIU could have shortened it a little bit, if I'm being 100% unbiased and honest here, right? I think there was a couple of times where it was like, they get on the ship, they're not on the ship, this happens, that happens, that. Like, there could have been a couple of maybe things taken out, but overall, I think every detail, or most of the details, I should say, were required to properly execute what SIU was trying to go for, which is trying to tell not just, okay, here's the thing. It's a story about how messed up the tower is, sure, but it's so much more than that. I see people who are saying, we already have enough of that with all these other characters. Why do we spend so much time harping over the same point? I heavily have a problem with that, because it's not just telling how the tower screws people over, it's describing Haratcha, the main villain of this Gakcha Dosang arc. Like, that's what I don't understand, is it's not just about Haratcha. If it was literally only developing Haratcha and it didn't have any other implications, I could maybe see people's points. Although even then I'm gonna talk about. But it develops Hansung Yu, because Haratcha calls him a hypocrite because of what Hansung is doing going around the tower with these other races. He's not properly giving enough time to them. But also, it develops Haratcha, the literal main antagonist right now. It develops how he acts. It develops why he's taking over these other races, how he does so, his manipulative nature, exactly how he goes about things. That's what it's developing, and it's developing his squadron. Like, it's accomplishing a lot. And I have to say, even just developing Haratcha as a character was so needed, right? Because I want you to imagine this. Imagine Haratcha versus Hansung without that story. You have Hansung figuring out the compression and killing him, and then he dies. You know what would have happened if that was done like that? White versus Ureo. White versus Ureo, I just thought of this, was pretty much just that. Urayo shows up, he's like, I'm gonna take you down, he catches his swords, and then he dies. That's it. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad fight. I actually think in that case it was probably better. But there was something missing from that fight. It was over in an instant. White just annihilated him. And I'm not saying that backstory on Urayo would have fixed everything. But I'm saying like the way it was done with Haratcha was done in a way that made the fight so much more memorable, right? So much more memorable. That's what I'm saying. White versus Urayo was not very memorable because it was over just like that. There was no reason to care about Urayo. But this added so much humanity, ironically, to Haratcha the feline. The whole point of Tower of God is the world building, and not just the world building, but the multiple stories being told within that world. I feel like lately, especially in Season 3, we've gotten too much focus on just a few characters. Bomb, Yama, I don't know, Kun, I guess. Like, there's only been a few people who are really getting the spotlight in Season 3. You get sometimes Doan and Cha get some scenes and stuff, but like really Bomb is the main focus, and Yama, I would say, like they're getting a lot of the screen time. Everything that's happening is sort of revolving around them, and we're meeting a lot of new characters, but as far as development goes, I can't think of that many characters who are developing in Season 3, aside from Bomb and Yama, right? Like, even Kun isn't really developing. He has the Firefish, I'll give him that. But like Rak, Hot, Shibisu, freaking everybody else who's a side character is barely getting any development. Hwaryun, right? And I feel like stories like this are opening the way for even more minor characters to get the focus they need. Because this is the whole point of Tower of God. The story isn't just Bomb's story. It's the Tower story. And if you want to tell the Tower story, you have to tell all these little stories that connect together. Because like I said before, Haratcha's story connects to Han Sung's story. It also connects to Yasracha's story, which connects to Yama's story, which connects to Karaka and Bomb. But then you have Yasracha who connects to etc, etc, etc. And it's like, that's Tower of God, at least to me. Tower of God has always been about that, the world building, right? Because let's take a look in the past. When you tell these side stories that seemingly don't matter, they always hit, and they always do matter even if they're not essential to the plot. For example, Akka and Daniel on the Hell Train. You could have taken out Akka and Daniel from that arc, and the story, the main plot, would barely have changed. I could describe White versus Bomb and everything, or Joaquin versus Bomb and everything that happened without mentioning their names. It wouldn't be that hard, right? But still, the whole plot line of their story was, in my opinion, the best part of that arc, the Dollar Show and everything, because the story itself was so good. And yes, Daniel did impact Bomb. Bomb listened to the story, and like Boro and Sachi, like they kept going, so they kind of carried that story, like the development mattered a little bit more, but not really. The development was mostly on Daniel and Akka. They're the ones that really developed from all of that, and they never were seen again. Why is no one calling their story pointless? Okay, yes, they were around for longer, I guess, but like my point is, they were a self-contained story that barely impacted the people around them, and it hit so hard, and we still loved it. Alfine, even, like on the Name Hunt Station, there's all the, Mata, like on the Floor of Death, with Hockney and everything, Bottis on the Hidden Floor. Like, yes, these characters are impacting others, but the reason why their characters are so good is because of the character itself, not necessarily the people around them. Like, yes, Mata and Hockney is the reason why it works so well, but Mata is the one who stands out on the Floor of Death, in my opinion, because Mata, not because Hockney. Because Mata. I don't know if I'm making sense, but my point is each character's story that's being told is impacting themselves, their self or whatever, most of all. They're impacting their own story most of all, and their own character. That's why it hits. Now, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes a side story is told that doesn't ultimately matter, and that is a little bit overly drawn out. For example, I think like Lee Ja-woon on the last station, they went into this thing where he was like screaming about his backstory and like, I like that, but sometimes maybe it's a bit unnecessary, but I still like it. Like, it's still needed. I just think SIU can sometimes maybe go a little bit too long with it, but even then, not really. Because I feel like lately in Tower of God, he's slowed down with that a little bit and only focused on the main characters and the more important characters in their stories. I feel like that's what's missing. So when we finally get it and people complain, it just makes me a little annoyed. But it's fine, like, it's good to criticize if that's what you truly think, and I think it brings about a good discussion, and I hope we can discuss it in the comments, because this is just my opinion, you know what I mean? Maybe you disagree with me. It's just something that I personally heavily disagree with. And even aside from does it matter, or who it impacts, or whether he died right away, I think it doesn't even matter. I think it doesn't even matter, because ultimately the story by itself is really good. If I heard this story anytime just by itself, not even related to Tower of God, it's still an incredible story. It's an incredible story about a man who did everything he could for his race, but because he did everything he could, he ultimately ended up killing them himself. He's the one who brought about their downfall. You know, there's a great line in there. They developed a habit of demanding equality, but they made no effort to make things truly equal. The Rashangs received everything, but because of that, that's why they fell from grace. You know, it's like a beautiful story about revenge, or not revenge, but like betrayal and intrigue and politics and all this stuff. And like, he loved his race so much that he's the one who annihilated them. And it's like, dude, what the and like the way he dies with all of them calling out to him and he's so torn, and like, it's a beautiful story, even if you take out like how it impacts the others. So that's why I want to talk about it. I want to defend it because I think that's one of the most beautifully written stories that SIU has ever told. And I think what makes it even more beautiful is that it was done to a character who didn't need to last forever. You know what I mean? Sometimes the sudden stories, the sudden characters are what matter the most to me, and to maybe some other people too. It's not all about Bomb and Kuhn and whoever else. It's about these small people. These tiny specks in the world of Tower of God, these grains of sand, that's what makes up the beach. You know, that's Tower of God. It's not just the boulder on the beach or the tree that's Bomb. It's like, no, it's the entire beach. Every grain matters. Dude, that metaphor was kind of sick, not gonna lie. But overall, let me know what you think. I do think the story matters even above and beyond affecting Han Sung-yu going forward. But still, I'm curious what you all think about it. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed and want to see more talk on Tower of God, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We do live reactions, discussion videos, theory videos, lore videos, and it's a lot of fun, so definitely stick around if that's your thing. Also, we have a Patreon page. The patrons are all listed here. Each and every one of you is awesome. If you want to see these kind of videos early, and a lot of videos are being posted early going forward in this week, then definitely become a patron. The link is down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next Tower of God discussion video. Take care.